Experts. Sam Romaine is the chair at Americans for Energy Dominance. Alan Mendenhall is a senior advisor at the Heritage Foundation and a former associate dean of business at Troy University. Sam, let me start with you. I mean, Americans hear tariffs and they go, hit the snooze button. We don't know what that really does to our everyday life. So we know that with this, energy and fertilizer, they're exempt, but 60 other countries are hit. So does that protect American consumers, or does that just shift the pain elsewhere in the supply chain and then drive up our costs?
Yeah, well, look, energy is buried in there, that we're not tariffing energy. At the end of the day, it does end up shifting costs to the everyday American, right? At the end of the day, when we have an issue in Iran and we're not building in our nation here, we are going to see an increase in oil prices. We are going to see an increase in gas prices. And when you see that increase in diesel prices, too, you now start to create a rising cost in the everyday American. And look, everything in our cart is optional, but at the end of the day, we can't keep the lights on. It's not an option to keep our lights on and pay our utility bill. And so what are we going to do when the higher import prices and higher fuel prices all land on the same week on the kitchen table for these Americans, right? We have to pay these bills, and nothing's free. The administration did not publish a household number, so we'll end up seeing where it lands. But I speak to a lot of American people every single day, and they don't talk about pass-through rates or the tariff rates or whatever it is. They ask ultimately why their power bill went up, why the gas is over $4 a gallon, and what are we going to do in this nation to take care of our people here? And a lot of that starts with making more goods here. This is where tariffs come from. We want more goods made here in America, and that includes fuel, that includes power. We don't want to be a nation that is standing in line for handouts like Europe and Asia, and in a time like this, we need to make it here in America.
Yeah, Alan, is this just the old tariffs in a new legal disguise? And if the courts strike these down too, what's the cost to American businesses, many of whom are stuck in limbo right now?
Well, actually, these are a very different provision of tariffs. So the administration has used basically 5 bases for tariffs. And we saw the IEEPA tariff struck down in February and by the Supreme Court in the Learning Resources case. Then it immediately shifted to Section 122 tariffs, which they expired just after midnight. So they expired today. Technically, there's nothing in Section 122 that says the president couldn't just reinstitute them, but there would be a legal risk of doing that. So the president has shifted to Section 301, which this is like penalties for bringing into a country any goods produced or manufactured based in whole or in part on forced labor. So the president has a very good strategy here, both rhetorically and legally, because rhetorically, everybody's opposed to slavery. Even if polling suggests that tariffs aren't very popular, nobody likes slavery either. And any country that's, relying on forced labor is being hit here. But legally, he's on good footing because this has to go through the United States Trade Representative first. There has to be investigation before the president can impose these tariffs, before the administration can impose these tariffs.
Okay.
And then even within Section 301, there's another provision, which is the unfair trade practices, is different from the forced labor, and that's where the Brazilian tariffs came from just a couple days ago. And then, of course, we have Section 232.
Hold on, I can't keep track of all these numbers. I'm sorry, I'm not that smart. I just need to know, when all these things and all those numbers go into effect, do I pay more when I go to the grocery store or the gas pump?
Well, I think economists are in agreement in general that tariffs do act as a tax on imports, and they do raise the cost of goods over time. So immediately, no, you may not see a change. But if the tariffs stay in effect for a long time, you may. And these Canadian tariffs are not set to kick in until August 19th. So I think with those in particular, the president is using them as a negotiating tool to say, hey, you don't want these to kick in? You better negotiate now with us.
All right, Sam Romaine and Alan Mendenhall, the numbers guy. Thank you so much.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you for having us on. Thanks so much.
More than 1.5 million dozen